Hey, Michael here from Beer Baseball Blog, The Adventures of Craft Beer and Baseball. This is the Beer Baseball Hoppy Hour, episode 5 for December 19th, 2020. This is a roundtable baseball discussion. All we ask is that you bring something to drink and have an opinion. Before we get started, wherever you are watching us live today, please give us a like and a comment. Let us know that you're out there. And as always, we'd appreciate if you subscribe and turn on those notifications. Let's meet the panel for today. First, he is my partner in the Beer Baseball Blogcast from Anaheim, California, Kevin Lyon. Welcome, Kevin.
Hey, it's great to be here and get ready to talk some Japanese baseball.
Yeah, me too. I'm super excited about this. And our guest today is the owner and operator of JapanBallTravel.com, an affiliated endeavor of JapanBall.com. Please welcome Shane Barclay. Welcome.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Kevin. Good to be on here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're super excited. Thank you for reaching out. When we're looking at everything that you're doing, of course, we have a love for baseball and, of course, craft beer, but Japanese baseball, especially anything Japanese, we're super into. We're into Japanese wrestling, Japanese culture, get Japanese food. So Japanese baseball. Kevin and I have been to Japan, but you actually you're I would say up to your neck in Japanese baseball. So you've taken it on as a career. And so tell me more about what you do.
Yeah, sure. And first of all, so going back to me reaching out to you guys, I just want to say I really appreciate what you guys are doing, because it's like beer, baseball cards. I'm like, these guys, this is my life right here. So right on, and props to you guys for doing that. So my story, I've been a baseball lover my entire life. I've always, at first I thought I was going to be a Major League Baseball player. That was my dream. And pretty quickly realized that wasn't going to happen. So I tried to find ways to work in the game in other ways, not being on the field. So I've spent most of my formative years just consuming all forms of the game, and then started to try to figure out how to work in the game. And part of that was studying abroad in the Dominican Republic, because I thought that would maybe help me learn Spanish and go to a baseball country. And that kind of really exposed me seriously to the international version of the game. And I'm fast forwarding through a lot of stuff here, but basically that got me a job at MLB's Office of the Commissioner, working in international baseball operations. And I worked out of New York and the Dominican office for a number of years. And then recently I was able to connect with JapanBall in 2018. Bill Bavasi was my coworker at MLB. You guys, Angels, I don't know, maybe you don't like Bill Bavasi so much, but
I know the Bavasi family,
So Bill worked with me, and his brother Bob is the one who founded JapanBall. And so I connected with Bob, and he was kind of looking to he had bought a boat. He's looking to sail around the world and kind of live the retired life. And that ended up with me taking over JapanBall this past January from Bob. And we seek to inform people and educate people about Japanese baseball and international baseball in general. We try to, just kind of let everyone know and help everyone learn how baseball is truly a global game. And then the ultimate form of that being coming on one of our tours, so you can really experience it for yourself. And so we go to Japan, we take fans on baseball-focused tours throughout the country. And also we're expanding to other countries as well. This year is supposed to be our first year going to a few other countries other than Japan. But of course, that all got kind of messed up with COVID. So we're putting that off for another year. Essentially, we believe in the kind of unifying power of baseball. And it's a great, I think, seeing a sports, any sort of sporting event is one of the ideal ways to experience a new culture, which we can get into that more later if you want. But, so that's what we do. And I love it. It's what I enjoyed doing, would be wanting to do on my own anyway. So I'm happy to be doing it as a job now.
Yeah, it's everything that I saw, it's like I can't believe that there's not more like people. Well, first of all, let me back up. Like we were looking for ways, like how can we get to Japan? How can we do all this stuff? Who are some people that we can meet up with? Or we have a friend between Kevin and I that kind of like plans these really great trips because he has jobs where he travels around quite a bit. So we're like, okay, we'll do this. You actually probably give us the best roadmap as to like where to go, how to be most efficient about it. Economical about it. I'm definitely interested to hear more about, what you do in the travel part of that.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, we'd love to have you guys. And you would fit right in with our group. That's for sure. And I would say, we'd be happy to help people who want to kind of go on their own. We have JapanBallTickets.com, which it's like a ticketing concierge service for people who aren't going on one of our tours. I mean, I am a bit biased, but I think that doing a tour is the best way because you're going on it's the three of us plus, I don't know, 15, 20, 25 other people who are just like us too, adventurous baseball lovers. And it ends up, the camaraderie of the group ends up being probably by many people's perspective, the best part. And, we're not the type of tour where it's like I'm holding an umbrella and everyone needs to follow behind me. It's get on the bus, get off the bus. Like we really want to let people experience their own version of the trip, and we just make you feel comfortable along the way. So it's just a way to see a new country with some like-minded people and experience a new culture with the familiarity of our beloved baseball.
Yeah, it's super exciting, and my head is like bursting with like ideas about this. This COVID thing would just go away already, but we'll talk about some more of the things that actually have changed because of COVID and all this stuff. So I think we're just gonna have to kind of deal with it and kind of work around it. But let me acknowledge a few people out there that are watching us. David is a faithful watcher. Thank you for joining us today. Chad M. Yeah, we're actually like Kevin and I are wearing our Rivera jackets, which we'll explain in a second. Our other pro wrestling friend, Ed Brown, has a maroon jacket. He went with me in 2004, which I'll explain in a minute. And actually, another wrestler, Lil Cholo out there. Actually, press the button. Actually, he was on Lucha Underground. And so that's if you guys know who we know him as Lil Cholo or Efren.
Hey, you know what? I don't like this guy. He beat me once, We go there and wrestled him in a singles match. He beat me. Hey, wait a minute.
Yeah. So, thank you for joining us today. One hell of a pitch for baseball. Yeah, absolutely. And you can tell how much you love baseball. So let's first, what are you drinking? And I will go around the horn and tell you what we're wearing, actually. So Shane, you go first.
All right. Well, I'm wearing a Tayo Whales shirt. They're the team that is now the Yokohama Bay Stars. Tayo is a fishing company, and they're the sponsor of the Whales back in the day. I'm drinking. This is the can Pleasure Point Porter made by New Bohemia Brewing Company. That Nubo, as they call themselves, is a brewery just up the street from us here in Santa Cruz, and it's made with Verve cold brew coffee, which is also a Santa Cruz institution. So I had to represent the local two brewery and coffee place that I love the most. There's actually so many breweries in Santa Cruz. But Nubo is a great one, and it's the closest one to me. So cheers to you guys, and it's a delicious beer. When I sniff it, it's like I'm about to drink a cup of coffee, then I taste it, and it's a beer.
Yeah, what a way to go! And actually, a porter at noon, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Nice work.
The porter's a little heavy to start the day, but then the coffee is like, well, it's 12 o'clock. So, and I probably wouldn't have the cold brew beer at nighttime. So, as I'm a little sensitive to the caffeine, so one or the other.
So Kevin, do you want to tell us about the beer we're looking at?
You know what though? What I can say though, it is 5 o'clock in Tokyo.
There you go.
5 a.m. though. 5 a.m. I had to make sure. I'm like, wait, it's 5:05. I'm like, yeah, it's perfect. So 5 o'clock somewhere right now in Tokyo, Japan. So one of our favorite local breweries is called Gamecraft down in Laguna Hills, I believe is the town it's actually in. It's more on the edge of South Orange County. We go here a lot. Like Angel this week had something from theirs. We've had them on the show before. And Japan, I don't know how big their craft beer scene is, so I figured I want to get this. This is a Japanese style lager by Gamecraft called Otaku. They're really nice. It's good to have a lager at 12 o'clock. When I have a beer at noon, lager is a good way to start. The process is probably going to be a long day of having some beers and having some fun.
Yeah, and I guess it's a American adjunct lager, a Japanese style rice lager as well.
Rice
so
lager, yes, that's right. Thank you.
yeah, so it has like a lemon, a bit bready, crispy type of taste, and it's really tasty. This is one we've had before, but we definitely wanted it for this show since it's a Japanese themed show. We thought about getting a regular Japanese beer, but a Gamecraft is like one of our favorite breweries, and we definitely love to support the indies. So it has 5.3 ABV, very low IBU, not that hoppy at all, but really super good. Definitely seek this one out. Seek this brewery out. We talk about it a lot. It's really great. So Kevin, show them your jacket there.
All right. Oh, I got to explain Ribera. So I actually did not earn this. The one Michael got, he did earn it. So to explain Ribera Steakhouse, it became a spot for wrestlers to go to in the 80s, like American wrestlers. Like if you go to the steakhouse still, you walk in, you would see old photos of old wrestlers like the Road Warriors, like Eddie Guerrero, people like that. And they're all like signed and stuff. It's a really fun spot to go if you're a wrestling fan, if you ever go to Tokyo. I was fortunate enough when I visited that someone I know, through his music connections, had an extra jacket. He gave it to me on the condition that I don't wrestle anymore. So I got that. So I saw Michael put his on, so I had to go get mine. But I figured today is the day to match my Nippon Ham Fighters hat to pull out the Otani shirt that I've not worn in a while.
I love this shirt.
I hate to say it, a bootleg. I was given this in 2018 for Christmas. Then in 2019, the Angels actually made their own version of this as a giveaway as well. So
yeah,
definitely interesting shirt to say the least.
It's such a fanboy shirt. Love it.
Yeah, I was like, I'm all in on Otani,
Yeah, it's super cool. Yeah, the Ribera jacket is a bit of rite of passage if you're a professional wrestler in Japan, and a lot of the Americans seek it out. And I was lucky to get mine in 2004 with Mr. Excitement, who's in the chat as well. The hat is actually I should turn this a little bit. How should I turn it? It's actually a visor. So I got this the 75th anniversary. So it's literally like this. It's very unique. I haven't seen anything like this. I actually got this from a Japanese wrestler named Kikutaro, who actually went and I was asking for anything Hanshin Tigers or like baseball shirt or a hat, and he got me this. So this was actually very rare to get at the time. And it kind of fits oddly because you're not used to having the open head part. So I look more like a blackjack dealer than I look like a baseball fan. But yeah, it's super cool. Got my beer, so I'm ready to talk some Japanese baseball. So let me go to my slide deck right here. So Shane, maybe you can give us a little more of an in-depth about Japanese baseball. So these would be considered the major leagues of Japan, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah. So these are the major league ballparks. NPB, Nippon Professional Baseball. Nippon is the Japanese word for Japan. Is the league there, the main league there? It's I'd say it's firmly like quadruple A level is like a good way of describing the level of the league there. So it's a high quality league, and as you see by the players that come over, like there are world class talents there, and I think it's just maybe in the way that it is maybe can be described as quadruple A's, just because the depth maybe isn't quite the same at the end of the bench as it is, in the major leagues, for example. But it's a really high quality product. And these teams that you're looking at here, as you see, they're spread all over the country. It says Tokyo there, and there's two teams, the Giants and the Swallows, that are in Tokyo proper. But really, there are 5 teams that are in the Tokyo area. Yeah. So you have Chiba there. Yokohama is, no one from Yokohama would ever claim to say they're from Tokyo, but as a tourist, you can reach Yokohama pretty easily. And then you have.
I could say that's like I live in Anaheim, and I get offended when people say I live in LA, even though the Angels got changed to the Los Angeles Angels.
That's a perfect analogy, right? Like, you would never say I'm from LA, and you're offended when you say, "Oh yeah, you're in LA." But if you're coming from across the world and you're a baseball fan and you're in Tokyo, you can definitely go to a Yokohama Bay Stars game. And then you have the MetLife Dome there in Tokorozawa. So those are all in the greater Tokyo area, and even Sendai above. If you take the bullet train, so obviously it's a little farther, but you can take a bullet train to Sendai, and that's less than 2 hours as well. So you can hit up all those parks within that kind of cluster. And then Sapporo up top is the one that is the fewest people go to, just because you have to take a flight up there. You can take trains, but it's pretty tough, and there's gonna be a bullet train going up there. Maybe even next year. I'm not up to date, but it's becoming more accessible, and it's a beautiful, beautiful area up there. And of course, you're wearing your Nippon Ham Fighters. That's where they are now. They used to share the Tokyo Dome with the Giants, and the Giants' previous ballpark too, but they moved up to Sapporo. And of course, you have to go to the Sapporo brewery and museum if you're up there. Yep. Which I did last year, and is a really awesome place with tons of history. It's a beautiful, sprawling brick complex that's just gorgeous, and they do a really good job with the tour there. So anyway, that's one of my favorites, and it gets really cold up there. That's some of the best snow in the world is up there on the island of Hokkaido, and it's a kind of a bucket list holy grail skiing destination for a lot of people.
Oh wow.
So
we don't have to. If you guys want to ask anything in particular, I'd be happy to. But
I was just curious, offhand, have you been to every stadium?
Yeah. So if you do our tours, so the way we set up our tours is what we have is that we have a pre-tour, main tour, post-tour, right? And that's kind of the simple way of explaining it. And if you do all 3 of them, we design it so that you're going to go to one game at all 12 ballparks. Wow. And that'll be over the course of less than maybe 18 days or so. The schedule, the NPB schedule dictates our schedule, so it's different every year. But what we want to do is we want to give everyone the opportunity to see all of them if they want to, and that's just a kind of a fun way to map out our trip. A majority of the people, of course, don't have the time to go to all those parks, so. They'll do like the main tour, which is maybe 5 or 6 ballparks in the course of maybe 8 or 9 days. And we'll do a couple in Tokyo, and then go down south and see a few more, and then come back to Tokyo. So I've definitely been to all of them. And some of them, they have this thing, they call them countryside games in Japan, which is a really cool concept where it's not necessarily in the countryside and rural areas, but it's smaller cities, and the major league teams will go play in the equivalent of minor league ballparks to give fans around the country a chance to see their, the big leagues. And it just makes the game that much more accessible. And it's a really cool concept. So there's a number of parks that you could see these teams in with that aren't on this map.
No, and that's during the season or off season?
Yeah, they do it during the season as regular.
No kidding.
Sometimes, it depends. Like, they definitely do some exhibition games that are, at the end of spring training is kind of the more common one. But teams will go play in alternate sites, and even, for example, the fighters. since they used to play in Tokyo, like I said, they'll play a handful of games every year, home games in Tokyo, as a way to give their old, original fans a chance to see their team play at home. And the Hanshin Tigers, they get kicked out of their ballpark every year at the beginning and end of the year for the high school baseball championship. Right. Their ballpark was actually built for the purpose of the high school baseball championship. So technically they're borrowing the high school stadium, and they do not get priority. The high school baseball tournament is a way bigger deal than their regular season games. So they go play at Kobe Field, which you see, it's on the map there, which is one of the kind of classic old school ballparks. They have like the dirt between home plate and the pitcher's mound. I guess the Diamondbacks had that recently. I think they maybe got rid of it, but anyway, it's so some teams will go on the road and play at different ballparks throughout the year. But for all intents and purposes, I've been to all of them, and anyone who goes on our full See It All tour, as we call it, has seen them all. And you'd be shocked how many people have done that. And if you do it, then you get entry into the JapanBall Hall of Fame, which is at a little noodle shop in Tokyo. We have a bunch of plaques on the wall. And for anyone who has seen all 12 ballparks or come on 3 of our trips, and I wish I had the numbers in front of me, but it's definitely like getting close to 100 people.
Wow.
In our Hall of Fame.
Kevin, we have a bucket list.
Yeah.
So Shane, I'm glad you brought up high school baseball, because I don't really knew until like last few years how big high school sports actually is in Japan. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to ask you, because I knew that was like a big thing, but I don't know how big is there a farm system similar to what we have with Major League Baseball?
There is a farm system. It's pretty small compared to what you would see here in the States, but every team has one, and some other teams now are having 2 developmental teams, and they play each other. It's much less of a formal. It's formal in that it's organized, and these guys are all professional, but it's not an institution like it is in the States, where people are really seeking out the games, and they of course the hardcore fans know the players in the minor leagues, but it's just it's not so much a thing. High school baseball itself, so Japan is about to celebrate 150 years of baseball. So it's basically as long as the United States. They have their own. It's like, I don't know what year you could technically say baseball is invented in the U.S., but it's probably like a 20-year difference between when it came to Japan. And for the first, really, professional baseball in its current existence didn't start until the 50s in Japan. And it started, I guess you could say, maybe in about the 30s. But for the first 50, 60 years of baseball in Japan, it was only an amateur sport. And the 2 biggest ballparks in Japan, or the oldest ones at least, are Koshien Stadium, which was built for high school, and Jingu Stadium, which is built for college. And those have been around for a long time. Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig played in those stadiums before professional baseball even existed in Japan. So it definitely is a very bottom-up development of baseball, and the amateur version of the game has always been celebrated and viewed as a way to build character and kind of establish who you're going to be for the rest of your life. It's a really big deal. And there's a documentary called Koshien, Japan's Field of Dreams, that just came out and is available currently in the U.S. And it really I highly recommend it you don't even have to be a baseball fan to watch it. It's a great documentary with an amazing story. And it really gets into how serious high school baseball is. And, even if you're applying for jobs, having played high school baseball is a huge plus for job applications. It really is held in a high regard.
Wow. Hey, I actually saw that. Actually, it was thrust upon me because I was watching the Major League Baseball Network one time, and they just randomly had it on. And it was the only time I think they've ever played it. And I think ESPN might have had it on an off hour too. But I just happened to see it at one time, and it was kind of elusive to actually find it. But I saw it and I was like, you're absolutely right on that. I mean, there's like a lot of drama in it. And it's like, all these guys are so young and like everything rides on every pitch, every play. You're right. And there's guys that have a lot of self-doubt and it shows up in the games and stuff like that. So it's like, and I'll say this in a baseball is kind of softened. Like, when I was growing up, like baseball coaches were very, obviously very hard on you. I had a baseball coach say to me my freshman year, and this is a quote, by the way, we're only as strong as our weakest link, and our weakest link is Mondragon. A direct quote. So I was technically the worst player on my team. And it was, but it was a tough transition year. I say I wasn't, I like to say I was good enough to be on a team, but I wasn't going to be your star player, but he wanted stars. There was a lot of demand. I mean, the program that I was in was very, very strict and very good, but these, like the managers for like these high school teams, oh boy, like you can't step out of place without them on you. So, or take a bad swing at stuff.
Yeah, I gotta look into this because this would the only American equivalent I can think of this would be like Friday Night Lights, like high school football in Texas. That's the only thing I think that'd be the equivalent of something like that because it's taken so seriously. And that's still a regional scale as opposed to Japan, which would be a national scale.
Yeah, so I was going to say it is probably the closest you could come to as far as high school, but where it doesn't compare is that high school football in Texas is only a big deal in Texas.
Right. Exactly.
And the way Emma Ryan Yamazaki is the director of that film, and we had her. We do a series, a video series where we have guests on, and we had her on our last episode. And she likes to describe it as March Madness and the Super Bowl combined. It's basically the Super Bowl with a March Madness format, a single elimination format. So,
and it's broadcast, right?
Yeah.
And
Emma was saying like she'll be in serious corporate meetings during the Koshien tournament, and the game is on in the background at like a very serious business meetings, and it's on all over the country. Even if you're not a baseball fan, you follow Koshien, especially because you're rooting for your home prefecture's representative in the tournament. And it's you become a national icon if you succeed, and they really put these guys on a pedestal. That in like Daisuke Matsuzaka is a good example. Like he could have had a horrible professional career and it wouldn't have mattered. Like he is revered in Japan for his performance in high school.
Yeah. Right. And my buddy Ed, supporting our daytime drinking, also another professional wrestler, Cowboy Jack, joining us. Ed reminds me that we went to the Hall of Fame.
That's the one thing I got to do too. Yeah.
Yeah. And the entire genre of anime captures the drama of high school baseball. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that I wanted to mention is like, you're right. It's like, it becomes like a phenomenon and it's just so different. We noticed when I went to Japan, the first time we were staying at a hotel that was right across the street from the Tokyo Dome. And the one thing that we noticed was, I mean, it was late at night, but the American baseball games were on, and they specifically had the Yankees games on because I think the timeline might be wrong on this, but I hope it's right. Tanaka wasn't there yet, but Ichiro was there and definitely in Seattle. I didn't know if he was with the Yankees yet, but there was a couple other Japanese baseball players. So what they would do was they would have the games on,
Matsui, and then Matsui.
I was going to say it was probably Matsui that was there because they were specifically everybody wanted to see him play, obviously. But the cool thing that they did was, so they would play the game and it would be like 3 up, 3 down. And instead of going to a commercial, they would have highlights of Matsui, what he did like during that game. If he was like playing catch, if he was like, his kind of his at bats, and they would go over it. And then when the game picked up again, they would just go right back to it. And I'm like, this is heaven. Like this is everything that I love. I mean, it's overdose on baseball, and they're so passionate and they're very supportive as well.
Michael, so I don't think you wouldn't have happened to know what network that would have been on, right? Because one thing I was going to mention, another reason why that high school game is so big is Japanese television is so much different than America. It's still pretty much just like regular channels, but the vast majority of people watch. Like cable and satellite and like streaming is not really taken like a giant, got a giant grasp compared to here in America, where nowadays everyone's trying to get streaming services. But as far as I know, Japan for years, if it's still traditionally is more straight network channels. So I'm sure you're getting like so many viewers for those high school games. I can only imagine what it is because everyone can watch it.
Yeah, good call. Yeah.
And Ed, it says like the Rays and Yankees opened in Tokyo that year. And I mean, like Hideo Nomo is another player that Chad M brings up. Actually, here's a deep cut. Shinjo. That's a super deep cut. He also mentions Matsui as well. So, for Americans to actually play in Japan is pretty unique. I was looking at this picture. So this is a very young Prince fielder with his father. So it's like, actually, now, Kevin, I don't know if you know this or not. We have a wrestling friend named Excalibur who's from Detroit, who seems to think that he went to a card. I think it was like a collectible show, and he seems to think that he was playing. There was this kid that looked just like him. That was when Mark was that age. That he goes. He wasn't even interested in baseball or anything, but he was playing his video game with him, and he goes, "I'm almost positive it was Prince Fielder because his dad was signing at that time." This is in Detroit.
I would suppose it's possible because it was in Detroit where he was, but I shouldn't say what Excalibur's age is, but I think he's older than Prince. You know what I mean? I don't think Prince is in his late 30s by now. I don't know because
I think they might be about the same age.
Okay.
Yeah. So I thought that was a really interesting thing. Yeah. He probably doesn't remember that he told me that, but I totally remember that.
Call him up. Let's get him on here.
Is this your hat, Shane?
No, it's one of our tour guests got that hat, but it's such a cool hat.
How awesome is that?
I'm not sure if that is an officially licensed like NPB hat, or it might have been a company that makes like their own artistic versions of the different teams' hats. There's a store called Selection in Japan that's in a few countries. That's kind of the main apparel store, and I think he said he got it there. And I had to snap a picture of it because
it's such awesome. Cool. I mean, it's so different, but it different in a great way. I definitely I would love to have this hat for sure. Well, let me ask you real quick. Do you have a favorite team that you follow from Japan, or do you just follow like my team is the Cardinals and Kevin is follows the Angels, but like I'll follow any baseball team. Like baseball is just universal. So, but do you have a favorite team that you follow?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I have a team that I'm like a diehard ride or die with. I'd say I like the Swallows a lot because they play in a stadium that I love in Meiji Jingu Stadium, which is a super old ballpark, very historic, and it just has a kind of a small feel. And I like them because they play in the shadow of the Giants in the Tokyo Dome, and they just kind of seem to, everyone like you guys, you went to Japan and I guess there's the off season, so you go to Tokyo Dome, go to the Hall of Fame, but like the Swallows are just kind of the forgotten team that's in Tokyo proper. So I just naturally was drawn to them. And then they do this thing called the umbrella dance that is just like when you first go to Japan, you can't help but to love it. Whenever they score a run, they have these little tiny shiny umbrellas and they sing a song and they do this like umbrella thing that's like so fun. And I don't know, people in Japan are so used to it by now, I'm sure, but I don't know, it just kind of drew me in immediately. And So I definitely like them because I like going to their ballpark and, just kind of naturally root for the underdogs. And then I like the Carp too in Hiroshima because they just have a really cool history. They were formed in out of the ashes of the nuclear bomb there, and they have a really strong history between the people of the city and the team. And there you go. That's on the road too. That's not even like that's not an away game. He dressed up like that.
Wow, I love it.
And their fans are just amazing. Going to a game there, I mean, the fans of all the teams are just so passionate. I'd say like the least passionate NPB fans would be the most passionate MLB fans, but the Carp are unique in that. And I guess I went to a Cardinals game in St. Louis one time, and it's just a sea of red and white, and the Carp is the same thing. Like everyone is dressed up, and they have a great ballpark. That's the newest ballpark in Japan, and kind of the closest thing to the modern ballparks that we're spoiled with in the U.S. So yeah, I've learned to like them a lot as well. But really, I'm just a fan of like I go to all the parks, and I don't know, I just like being at the game. I working at MLB was interesting how it kind of changed my perspective on baseball. And like we weren't even like really allowed to be fans, or if we were, I mean, we could be fans, but we can't. We had to be careful because we technically worked for all 30 teams.
Can't openly root for the team, right?
Exactly. And I grew up going to A's and Giants games, and I always liked them because they're my hometown teams, and I was equidistant from them growing up. But I've just kind of learned to appreciate talent and the atmosphere, and I root for good games, and like the Hawks have an absolute dynasty going on right now in Japan, in Fukuoka, the SoftBank Hawks, and I find myself almost like rooting for them, which some people don't like, just because I appreciate the greatness. Like I feel like there's a threshold where if they win one or two in a row, then it's like, maybe it's time for someone else to come in. But once you just show that you're so dominant, it's like, I want to be able to say I witnessed this, and almost like, I don't know, I guess the Patriots are a little too controversial right now, but I don't know, like Edmonton Oilers back in the day. I don't know, just these teams that are so revered, and just this, like, I almost just appreciate seeing, just the greatness. And so anyway, that's my answer to your question. I don't have a strong preference.
Because I can't really think of a baseball. I'm trying to think what that could be the equivalent of our baseball dynasty now. Because I always know historically you would say the Tokyo Yomiuri Giants are like the Yankees of Japan. So I'm trying to think like what would that be, like the Cardinals or the Dodgers? Like who has second most championships? But it just sounds like they're going through a dynasty right now. So I think it's a pretty good comparison there. Yeah,
and then the Giants are definitely like the Hawks have a long way to go until they catch up to the Giants.
Yeah, everybody does.
But currently, they're really fun to watch. And the thing is, like, I like them because they do it the right way. And in Japan, there's I don't know, it's an interesting history of like how baseball developed, right? They wear the corporate names more so. They represent the corporation than their city. And financially, that had like teams almost had an incentive, like were disincentivized to win historically because of them being a marketing expense for the company. That it could be like a write-off. And it's
wow,
if you want, but it's pretty interesting. But teams like weren't really incentivized to like evolve, and they do things. Japan as a culture, like tradition is perhaps the most important thing in respecting the tradition. And the Hawks have a really good blend of the old and the new, and their ownership of SoftBank is a technology company, so they're willing to kind of be more modern thinking. But Sadaharu Oh is the chairman of the team, and he is the ultimate old school sign of respecting the way things have always been. And so they really have a good balance, and they invest the money that's needed to have proper scouting and player development. And they have good, exciting players that are just like electric performers and talented performers. And it's just it's like a really well-run organization. You can't hate on them like you could the Patriots, for example.
Yeah. Yeah.
But sometimes, people aren't always going to like the winners. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And I don't blame them. I think I'm probably actually in the minority and sometimes rooting for the greatness. But like I said, you have to reach a certain point until it's like, all right, if you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah, there's the thing I have two stories that I always tell about like why Japanese baseball is. I wish that they would adopt these two things. When we went to the Baseball Hall of Fame, we Ed and myself, we walked up to this display, and it had this guy's uniform and his cleats and his hat and everything and his bat. And there was a little TV monitor, and I'm like, oh, okay, and what's this? And I was just checking it out. And this guy lays down a bunt and gets thrown out. And then this ceremony that happened after that happened was one of, I can't even describe how amazing, like they were showering him with flowers. All these people came out, they stopped the game. It was as if Pete Rose, hit, his, record-breaking hit, right? So I'm just like, what the heck just happened? It turned out that this man became the all-time sacrifice bunt leader in Japanese baseball. And from what I know of Japanese culture, that is super revered, is to give up of yourself for someone else. And the fact that he became this leader, it was honored in the Hall of Fame, of course. I was like, it made all the sense in the world. My second story is in the subsequent game that we went to go see. It was Hiroshima versus Tokyo. And in the left field stands of the Tokyo Dome were the Hiroshima Carp fans. Before the game, there was a formal announcement of welcoming the Hiroshima fans to the stadium.
So cool.
And saying, thank you for coming. We invite you. We welcome you. Let's have a good game, basically.
Yeah.
I'm like, can you imagine in Fenway Park? They go,
here, I'll give you an example.
Yankee fans up here all over.
Yeah. No, I've been saying I always think of like the 7th Line Army, for the 7th Line Army from the Mets.
Right.
You imagine it's a Mets Yankee game, and they're Yankees saying like, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the fans from the 7th Line Army, and everyone would be like losing their minds over that.
Yes. It wouldn't happen. Like in the All-Star game when they're booing the All-Stars. I remember like Jerry Seinfeld saying like, these are the best players of our generation. We're booing them just because they're from the city we don't like. That's what I love about I love like that they honor history, they respect history, they respect that just the empathy of just around it's just a different thing. We have a friend who also does I think for the Hanshin Tigers he was one of the cheerleaders, section cheerleaders. Yeah. Which is another part of Japanese baseball, which I wish that they would kind of incorporate here as well. It would actually encourage probably being a better fan. I would expect.
Yeah.
Now, what's your experience with that, Shane?
Yeah, well, man, so first of all, your two examples, those two examples capture the essence of Japanese baseball. Like it's spot on, and the amount of respect. There's so many examples of the respect between teams, between fans, between the organization that's hosting the visiting fans. Like so many examples of that, and they're so passionate. They love their teams, but it's not this it's like all the positive and very little of the negative, which I love. And as far as the fans, I'd say like the best analogy for an American sports fan would be college football. So you have yell leaders at the front of the section who are leading organized chants, and there is the Oendan is the equivalent of what like the student section would be at a college football game, where they are the ones leading all the chants, and they're standing the entire game, and they're absolutely locked in to every pitch, and every strike and every ball is worthy of celebrating, depending which side you're on. It really they're playing music, they're yelling, they're chant. Every player has his own song. But the thing is that makes it really unique is it's 27 outs every game of the year. It doesn't matter what the standings are. It doesn't matter what the score is. Like, you are devoted to your team, and you view yourself as an essential part of that team's success. And I the 12th man in Seattle is like, I have my issues with them. I'm a 49ers fan, so, but it's like, you're not part of the team. But in Japan, you are part of the team. Like, and the players will say so too. And it's really impressive to see. And one funny story about that is that when we go to JapanBall does trips for MLB opening day games when they're in Japan, when they have the opening series in Japan. And so they'll play games, exhibition games between the MLB teams and the Japanese teams. And when the Japanese team is up to bat, the Oendan is doing their songs for every player, and it's loud, there's drums, etc. Then the MLB team is up, and it's like silence in the whole stadium, because everyone does their songs, but it's a very respectful kind of humble, know your role, know your place culture. So like, when it's expected of you to cheer, you do it, and you do it really well. But there's not a lot of cheering going on outside of that. And it's just kind of this hush to the crowd. And then when the half inning switches, then it's loud again, then it's quiet. But then when the two MLB teams play each other, it's actually a pretty quiet atmosphere, which is interesting. Except for like when they still clap, and but it's a much more subdued atmosphere. It's just kind of funny because whenever Japanese teams are playing, it's like wild, college football, loud, making noise, and it's just kind of a funny experience. These fans are unlike anything you see in other sports, and you can just sit there and watch the Oendan the whole game and be entertained. Or if you manage to go walk behind them or walk through and just kind of really capture that energy, it's impressive. Yeah,
I noticed that the players and the teams, the atmosphere is really, really insane about how they kind of treat it. Now, conversely, we're into Japanese wrestling. So one of the things that we notice about the difference between American wrestling, pro wrestling, that this is, and Japanese, is they kind of study it. Like there's points in American wrestling where people obviously get up and like cheer and boo or whatever, but like the Japanese crowd will actually observe. And then like things like when they roll out of the ring, but then they roll back into the ring, so the match continues, they'll applaud that, which is actually kind of like out of character for like why are they applauding? They're applauding the effort and the everything going forward. And so like I can see that for the Major League Baseball, where they're just like, they're more like observing, like, oh my gosh, like that's that player that we've seen or whatever. They're just more like there, and then they'd applaud like when something happens. Or to encourage. So, but it's definitely a different watching experience in baseball. I can imagine.
Yeah, I have a question about attrition. I don't know too much about it, but I want to know more about the first pitch in a game, because I've seen in Japan, I don't know how much you know about it, but I've seen it to where there's actually a batter at the plate.
Yeah. Yeah, so the batter,
he always swings, right? Is that what the deal? I'm trying. Can you explain? Do you know more about that?
Yeah, I mean it's basically it's the same as what you're used to, except they'll have a batter who will do like a fake swing and a miss as a way of like the pitcher threw a strike.
No matter what. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of cool because
this pitcher was like, oh my gosh, it was way far out there. If the guy still swings and a miss, it's called a strike. I'm like, that looks like a very traditional Japanese thing.
Yeah. It's like it's just a way of I don't know the whole history behind it, but my assumption is like the Japanese are like the most hospitable people. Like the culture is just like great hospitality, so welcoming, and it's almost just a way of like making that honorary first pitch thrower even more honored. Of like we're gonna
like you threw a strike no matter what.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah, totally. And there's been some.
Like, I got to ask about that because I've seen it enough. I'm going, there's got to be more to this than that,
Yeah, that's a great question.
a Tokyo Yomiuri Giants game, and I wasn't expecting it, but Steph Curry came out and threw the first pitch.
Wow.
One of the guys swinging this, and that was pretty fun for me being from the Bay Area, seeing him out there. But yeah, it's kind of funny. And actually, one thing that came up recently, which it's probably more of a non-issue than people made it out to be, but actually, there's a pitcher for the Hanshin Tigers who's a really respected pitcher with a long career, and there is a little bit of drama because one of the batters in his final outing was trying too hard to hit, and it was expected of him to do a better job of acting than the first pitch batters do, but to kind of strike out while looking like he was trying. And he flew out to innocent, fly ball, a can of corn.
Oh, get a fly ball?
Yeah. And,
can you imagine? Come on, imagine if that happened in America. People would losing their mind.
Heel.
I know, exactly. And people were. The pitcher said it was fine. Some people. It's definitely whether or not that specific case was a big deal is for debate. But it's definitely a thing that is a tradition. And. There's like with the sacrifice bunt, right? Like it doesn't matter if you show me numbers that say that sacrifice bunts aren't worth it because of everything that a sacrifice bunt represents and how ingrained that is into the institution of baseball and how ingrained that spirit is in the culture. Like you can't even argue with that. And actually that reminds me of another example of maybe some of these obstacles to not obstacles to progress. I mean, if you're the type that's like baseball needs to evolve, then you say like, why are these Japanese teams, why do they continue to sacrifice bunt? Why do they continue to do these things that have been proven to not make sense by the math? And actually, there's one guy who is saying that a manager who decides that he's not going to do things the way they've always been done is therefore disrespecting the manager and the managers that came before him, basically saying, I'm smarter than you, I know better than you. So he would never do it, even if he told me it made sense, because that's very disrespectful to the past and to those who, who did it a certain way, and he doesn't want to one up anyone.
Oh wow, that's awesome. I love that. Now I've actually been to 2 finals of the World Baseball Classic. Now you were involved in the World Baseball Classic, correct? Yeah,
very much so. And if it wasn't canceled, I would still be working on it too.
No kidding. Okay, yeah. So that's awesome to know. So I definitely we'll definitely connect on that. But I wanted to bring up one thing real quickly. So I was at the 2009 final. It was Japan and South Korea, and so obviously a huge rivalry. And the greatest thing about it was that Ichiro became a real, like, he was like the Darth Vader of that series, and he was calling out like the South Korea players, like you guys haven't done anything. You guys, are, your team is weak and all this other stuff. Like, but that game really changed my perspective on just international baseball, because that was the only that Dodger Stadium is like 12 miles from here, but I thought I was in a different country when I was at that game, because of just all the pageantry, all the cheering, everybody. It was like a World Cup game, but yet in Dodger Stadium, and that is the thing that I love. But when Ichiro came up to bat, he was the most hated person on the planet, and luck have it, he actually had a great game and actually led them to the win. Actually, and Yu Darvish was also on that team as well. So that's the first time I got to see him. But yeah, it was the international games have just such a different feel. It was great. Just people with drums and dressing up. It was fantastic. I go, that guy would never get in here if this was a regular Dodgers game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, anyone, it's a great way to get a taste of what Japanese games or any games in Asia are like by going to WBC games. And it just like you saw it, like every team on the Japanese national team has their song that everyone sings. And in unison. And then in Korea and Taiwan, they have a similar baseball atmosphere to Japan. It's they take their cues from Japan was where Asian baseball started, and I'm sure Taiwan and Korea wouldn't want to hear it, but they get their baseball from Japan, and their fan and their in-game experience is very similar to Japan's. And if you go to WBC games, it's like that. And then you have the Latin American teams who they maybe aren't as organized in their cheering, but definitely equally passionate and maybe a little wilder. But yeah, it's so fun to go to those games, and the players too, like they wear their country on their chest, and they are playing with a level of passion that you don't really maybe ever see on a Major League Baseball field.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see how the Americans were, you know what I mean? Because I went to one game with Michael in San Diego. I don't remember off the top of my head who they played, but I remember that Adam Jones catch in center field.
Yeah, it was who does Manny Machado play for?
DR.
So it was Dominican Republic, United States. That's when Adam Jones made that amazing catch in center field.
Oh my God. Yeah, I remember that catch. Yeah, that's one I remember, Some details of some games I won't remember, but I'm like, that one really sticks out to this day.
Yeah, that's an iconic catch. And for him, he knows it was a huge deal for Adam Jones too.
Yeah, absolutely. And the United States went on to win that game. So Alan Jepson, who was a guest on the Hoppy Hour last week, is it true that the wave is banned at Japanese games? Banned?
I do not know if it is banned. I do know that it's not something that you typically would see, and it doesn't really seem to jive so much with I don't like people have their issues with the wave and how it's a distraction, and like you were saying, Michael, like the fans are locked into the game and they're observing, and it seems like the wave would be the type of thing that maybe is it's something else that's happening that's not focused on the game. So I don't know if it's officially banned. Maybe it is. I don't know if there's a story there. I definitely am going to ask some friends and find out.
If I was the baseball president, the wave would be banned because it takes away from the game. It's a controversial statement, and I stand by it.
How dare you?
I always do this. I do my version of the wave. I haven't done the wave yet, but okay. So in that 2009 game, there was two girls that were American girls that were trying to start the wave, and I told them respectfully, I go, I don't think you're gonna get the wave going in this game because that's just not the way that they roll.
Yeah, it's kind of like the concept. So my dad used to always talk about. Like he was the first person who talked to me about Japanese baseball because he used to go there on business trips, and then he would in turn take his business partners to games in the States, and they would always say like Americans are so silly, they have to have someone tell them when to cheer.
Yeah.
And the wave is kind of like that. The wave is just like this thing that's happening that's not relevant to the game, and you may say, what are we at, a soccer game here?
Right. It's like in football that like in an NFL game, they always go third down, it's like that. It's like a big deal. Like they have to tell people it's third down, whatever, when you're on offense. There's very few stadiums that I've been to where people they know the count. So if it's like a 3-1 count and their team is batting, that's a great count. Right. So then they get on their feet and really cheering and stuff like that. I think only Fenway Park was like one of the only Fenway, Busch Stadium, Yankee Stadium, but more of the season baseball stadiums, but very few times. But everywhere else, it's just like you're right. They have to definitely cue people in on how to kind of root for this.
I hate to say it, but it's more like the more casual baseball markets. You know what I mean? Because you're talking, you just mentioned like some of the biggest franchises in baseball history.
That's
you know
true.
what I mean? I mean, come on, I'll single out Arizona. You know what I mean? Arizona. I'm sorry, Cowboy Jack, but I think I'm sure you're watching. I don't anticipate Arizona Diamondbacks fans being the most passionate baseball fans out there.
Right. And but that comes in time, and baseball doesn't. I don't think Americans see baseball as kind of like football, like where you stand during the whole game or do anything. It seems as more of a casual sport. But even cities like St. Louis had to do kind of actually, like Seattle and Arizona has done it. Definitely the Giants have done it. Is they have kind of like this area, like the Giants in center field. There's a place where all these, and I hate to single out people because I'm an old guy, but the millennials go and just drink and hang out and stuff like that. St. Louis had to do that
back there.
Yeah, exactly.
If you ever go there, that crab sandwich is, oh my God, the crab sandwich
so good.
back there by McCovey's Cove, like center field. Oh gosh,
but it's more of a hangout. It's more of a hangout than it is like you're invested in the game,
right?
And so, but like, yeah, I mean, we're invested in the game, but we're also like going and checking out all the places in the stadium as well.
I'll say, like, I think so. Being as an American baseball fan, like, I appreciate that about baseball. Like, I appreciate being locked in, and especially if it's like a playoff game and the whole stadium's into it, that's like ideal. But I like going to a game. Like, I am a lifelong baseball lover who has worked in baseball forever, and I follow it as much as anyone. But when I'm at a game, I'm oftentimes not paying that much attention, and I'm, hanging out with my friends and having some beers and walking around the park. And I personally think, I'm a millennial, so personally, I think like I'm okay with that. But that's why I like going to Japan, because it's not like that, and then I can have, I'm spoiled. I get the best.
You can play both sides of it,
exactly,
for sure.
And I can appreciate the Japanese version. But like, going to a game in San Diego, I think is like the best example of what you're talking about. These fans aren't really watching the game. They're not the most intense fans, but like, I really enjoy going to a game in San Diego. It's a great day out.
Oh, Petco's awesome. Yeah.
And not necessarily because of the baseball experience, but just because it's a great way to spend your time, Yeah.
Petco Park actually encourages you not to stay in your seat and to walk around the stadium. They want you to walk around, and they have, I like, for instance, I could buy like a seat on the top, and I could watch it from the standing room, like down at field level. Yeah. And there's not a lot of stadiums that allow that. There's certain sections that when I went to Colorado, when I went to, the Giant Stadium, I get these great, even in Anaheim, same thing. Yeah. But so
that's definitely one thing with the more modern ballparks. Some of those areas are more open now, to where if you go get a drink somewhere, you can still see, the game from where you're at. You know what I mean? So you can kind of just roam around and check things out. And that's definitely more of a modern stadium feature. And surprisingly, Anaheim does have that, at least at the lower levels.
Yeah.
I remember baseball. The first time I went to a game in,
I'll ask you a question in a minute, but go ahead.
When I first went to a game at Petco, they announced the crowd at 32,000 or whatever. And I was like, and I look around, it looks like there's 4,000 people here. Yeah. And 32,000 is probably an exaggeration, but there probably was 20-something thousand people, but just no one's in their seat. Everyone's.
You know what? That could be paid attendance.
Yeah.
There's people that have season tickets. They listed 2 attendances. There's the paid and the actual people went through the turnstiles, 2 different numbers, which I never saw before. I was like, well, that's weird.
Yeah. Well, it's like the opposite of Fenway Park, where everyone is in their seat. Like, Fenway Park, you don't go to the bathroom if it's not the end of the inning, and in San Diego, I don't think anyone cares.
Yeah. Our other broadcast participant is Angelo Trinidad, and he was talking, like, for instance, we went to an Angels game, and we were talking the whole time. Like, we were just chatting it up. And his wife told him, like, you guys weren't even watching the game. And I'm like, he told her, he goes, yeah, we were. We knew everything that was going on during that game. I think that's one thing. If you watch enough baseball, we know everything that's going on. We know the situation. We know the count. We know we're actually checking the scoreboard. We're like watching our own teams. We're on our phones, and we're checking other games. We're like, I'm watching other games while I'm doing it. But we're able to multitask, and that's one of the fun things when you were with baseball people. Like, you can have a conversation of like, oh yeah, like I remember we're watching Chris Davis, and Chris Davis was like, oh my God, he had like a miserable season. So we're like, hey, remember this guy, Chris Davis? And we're just like, we'll just go on with what we're talking about, like,
And we've had it happen to where there are non-baseball fans who are like, I don't want to go to baseball games. I want to go to baseball games with you guys. And I know you've said that feel too. Like, you don't like baseball? You haven't gone to a game with us.
You haven't gone with us. We'll make it fun for you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll,
you guys
we'll
got to
show you
come.
the little nuances of the game that you never even saw before. You wouldn't even know what's going on.
Yeah, you guys got to come on one of our tours. You guys would love
Oh,
it.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
I'm
And-
the same way. Like we'll go with
Dream
groups
trip.
of friends, and I like to make the game enjoyable. Like baseball, as you guys know, like if you don't understand it, then you don't appreciate it. And I love taking people to games and talking to them about what's going on or about the players. And like a lot of it want to know there's people want to know their story, like the human story. And there's baseball allows for the drama and the stories to be told in the pace of the game. Yeah, that's what I love about it, and it makes it fun to go with people who are like, well, I've never really appreciated that about baseball.
Or you didn't even notice something that it's like in the stadium. And well, I definitely want to talk about a couple of things like that. Like for instance, like here's some beer. I mean, I thank God you're into beer. So like, but this is a great. I mean, part of our passion about. I mean, we were already passionate about baseball, but then we found out about craft beer and like how we can incorporate it into what we're talking about and what we're doing. And so you're a craft beer fan. So is there like a big craft beer presence, or is it pretty much dominated by a lot of the bigger ones, bigger like Sapporo, Asahi?
Yeah, good question. So there is certainly an emerging craft beer presence in Japan. Like and it's at the point now where it's not hard to find. And not that it's everywhere, but there are tap rooms and breweries definitely in Tokyo and in other parts of the country. They're still pretty young in their craft beer evolution. So it's not always being the beer fiends that we are. Maybe it's not going to be the most interesting thing always, but it still is awesome to go to a tap room or a brewery in Japan, and kind of like it's similar to baseball, where it's like there's certain things that are familiar and the vibe is familiar, but then everything else is different, and the service is different, and the snacks that they give you are different, and it's a great way to experience new beer. If when we go together, I'll definitely take you to some of those spots. Wow. But the thing is that you can't talk about what we're doing today. We can't not talk about the beer at the baseball games, which is the thing that is the best part of the beer baseball scene in Japan. You could say it's the best thing about the beer scene and the best thing about the baseball scene in Japan. So they have these beer girls that have pony kegs on their back. And it's the main pouring rights don't exist in Japan. Like every stadium has all of the big breweries, and they'll have Sapporo, Asahi, Ebisu, like 4 or 5 of the main ones. Sometimes you'll see an American like Budweiser or something thrown in there, but they're going up and down the aisles constantly, and they are hustling. And in Japan in the summer for the dome stadiums, it is hot. They're pouring sweat, but they're like the best service, just a huge smile on their face, and they are just hustling all game long, pouring you fresh, cold draft beer from the pony keg on their back. And it's amazing how easy it is especially when it's hot out, to just kind of go, because as soon as it's done, there's another beer girl right there for you, ready to fill you up, and it's affordable. They don't gouge you in Japan at the ballpark. It's not the concept of, well, this is the only option, so we're going to charge you a 50% premium. Like that doesn't exist in Japan. Maybe you pay another $1 or so, but at the Tokyo Dome, it's like $7 or $8 a beer, and everywhere. And it's like I said, it's brought to your seat, poured on draft. With a smile.
Yeah, because that's something I don't even really see in American ballparks anymore, is someone going around selling beer. First off, exactly. I don't see that. And then it's like in the summer, that's gotta be great, because I mean, we were talking about beer for Japan. I just know, like, whenever I see Japanese beers, it's almost always like a lager. You know what I mean? Yeah. Maybe pilsners, but it's all more lighter drinking stuff, which is great in those hot summers in Japan.
Yeah, and it's rice lagers like what you guys are drinking. Yeah. And everyone quickly there are definitely distinctions between them, and everyone has their ones that they swear by. outside of Tokyo or outside of Tokyo Dome, it's like $5 or $6 a beer. Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. It's easy to drink more than you're expecting to. They also serve like whiskey highballs, like whiskey sodas on draft as well. So some people get into that. And the same thing with this. It's not like with the beer goals, you may get 3 people per inning coming up and down your aisle. If you want the cocktails, you can maybe go, every other inning, you'll get an opportunity to get filled up. So yeah, I mean, that is huge. And then the last thing about beer and baseball in Japan is that when you walk into the park, you can be holding, a tall can like this or a small one. And the first time I saw it, I remember I saw someone walking in with beer and they stopped him. And I was like, what's that person do? You can't just walk in with a beer. But they stop you and they give you a cup. And they say, pour your beer in the cup. And now go in. And
when I went was December, January, and I think I went to a wrestling show and my friend's like, hey, watch this. And he had a beer and he's like, watch, he's pouring a cup and go in. I'm like, what? Can you imagine in America? No way. That's why, we pregame at breweries by Angel Stadium,
It's like Las Vegas, like walking in the Strip. It's like,
I guess so.
Walk with a glass or a can, right?
Because honestly, it's a little bit cheaper outside of the ballpark. Like I said, it's not bad in the park, but if you're trying to save money, there's convenience stores everywhere. You grab your beer, grab your snacks, and you walk into the game. The tickets are affordable, the food's affordable, but you can really do it on a budget if you bring your own drinks and food in, which many people do. I'd say a majority of people.
Go to the Lawsons.
Yeah,
go find your Lawsons, You can get pretty good cheap food in there too, you know what I mean? The food in there is actually surprisingly decent. I was like, wow, this is way better than 7-Eleven.
Oh man. Some of my favorite Japanese snacks and treats are definitely Lawson's and 7-Eleven.
Yeah. Shane, I had a question. So in America, obviously, like the big baseball tradition would be the 7th inning stretch. Yeah. And I believe they do that in Japan, right? Or something.
Yeah, they do.
Do they have anything else they do traditionally, like games like that?
Well, the 7th inning stretch is, and I think Michael has a picture of the balloons.
Good. That's the one I've always heard about.
Yeah. So actually in the top half of the inning, they'll play the opposing team's like fight song.
Okay.
And there's always an opposing team fan representation, and they'll shoot off their balloons at the culmination of the song. But then in the middle of the 7th inning, they do the home team's song, and the whole stadium sings along, and you all have your balloons filled up, ready to go. And at the culmination, at the end of the song, you shoot them off, and the whole stadium has like a whistle sound, and all these balloons are shooting up in the air, and it's super fun. And of course, immediately it's like everyone springs to action and cleans them up. Like it's in Japan, you don't throw peanut shells on the ground. You don't leave your balloons on the ground. You pick up and you clean up, which is cool to see. But that's always, it's fun no matter how many times you go. But as a foreigner, it's a super unique experience, and they always get a kick out of it when you see that for the first time.
So keep this conversation going. I'll be right back. I want to get something real quick.
Every stage, is that every? Well, I mean, I imagine not the Tokyo Dome, but is that at every other stadium? Because I only heard about that through the Hanshin Tigers. Is why
the Tigers are the most famous for it, but they do it everywhere. Yeah, it's definitely. It's. I think maybe the Tigers started it, but I believe that it is spread. As far as I can recall, they do it everywhere now.
Oh, okay.
And it's funny. I mentioned Bob Bavasi is the one who started JapanBall, and he always he owned and operated minor league teams, and he was always like, "These guys are geniuses. These balloons cost it's like $1 for a 2-pack or something, and like every fan in the stadium, or at least every family, every single game is buying their balloons." So
you actually buy the balloons from? You buy the balloons at the park.
Yeah, and I'm sure some people.
I was wondering if they were given out to people. So people actually will go and buy their balloons. Oh, that's so.
I'm sure some people buy it in bulk, or have their ways. It's so cheap.
That's a brilliant marketing scheme.
Yeah, so you're like guaranteed,
but easy money maker. Wow, that's great.
You're guaranteed like $20,000 in balloon sales every game.
Oh my god!
So here's something that I'm wondering if you guys even know about this. That in February of this year, the traditional jet balloon launches by fans of the Hanshin Tigers may fall victim to current coronavirus outbreak. The team asked fans on Friday to refrain from the practice.
Yeah.
So, and balloon sales actually were affected as well, as I'm reading as well.
Yeah. So what they did, I wish I saw a picture online, but I don't have it right now. But so towels, like like you see at soccer games, the towels that people have, like that's a big thing in Japanese baseball. So they started selling towels with the balloon on them, and
wow!
So people would, during the seventh inning, they'd hold up because they were still having fans at the games, just social distancing and all that stuff, and like 5,000 max. So they would hold up their towels with the balloon on it for the lucky. It's called a lucky seven. That's it. The seventh inning stretch. It's lucky seven. So for a lucky seven, they hold up their towels because there's nothing less COVID friendly than having like your spittle shooting all over everyone. So they found a way to make it work because people love their lucky seven. They call it jet balloons. So they found a way to kind of honor the tradition, and hopefully it'll be back. Maybe, I don't know, next year might be pushing it, but I'm sure it'll be back. It's a big part of Japanese baseball culture.
Yeah, there's I wanted to make mention of this. So I took this picture in the Tokyo Dome, and it used to be our like header. And I'm sure this girl doesn't even know this. This is in 2004 that she became basically the unofficial like mascot for the Beer Baseball blog, because it's like everything about this picture is amazing. Like I love this, but those are the beer girls that go around and they have like as my buddy Ed says, please, pretty girl with Ghostbusters backpack, beer story, please. So I was trying to get a picture of, I'm like, this is amazing. And not only I go, at the time I was like, this is my next ex-wife. So I was definitely, I don't think she knows this, but I bought 2 Abisu beers, and I didn't even know about beer, but I just I kept on like looking at her, and but she kept on bringing me beers, and I was like, okay, I could get used to the Japanese baseball and beer. But this picture, I did just, everything about it is great. It was our header for like years, so I definitely wanted to make mention of her. And I don't even know if she even knows that she's a big part of our effort here.
And one thing too, now I know that they're hustling like crazy to sell the beer, but in the Japan culture, tips are not even a thing.
No,
right?
No. They'll chase you down.
Too.
They'll chase you down and say, "Hey, you forgot your money," and give it back to you.
Wow, that's so amazing.
Like people in our group will try to, sometimes they'll take it. I think if they really are insistent on like keep this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's true. Tipping. I love that about traveling to Japan. Like you're always. Whenever you travel to somewhere new, you just have to look up what's the tipping culture in Japan. It's so easy. Just don't do it. And it's almost like disrespectful. So like saying implying they need it type thing.
Oh yeah.
And it's just not, it's also just, it's just not something they do. It's just like weird to them. So yeah, you're only paying whatever the beer is cost, and it's very affordable.
Yeah, so in the travels, one of the things I love that you documented was a lot of the monuments that are around the state. Is this by a stadium? Is this? Yeah,
so this is one of those countryside games I was telling you about. It's at Kusanagi Stadium in Shizuoka. It's close to the Mount Fuji area, beautiful area, and that's where I took these photos.
Yeah, so these 2 statues depict 17-year-old Ije Sawamura pitching against Babe Ruth in the 1934 Kusanagi Stadium in Shizuoka Prefecture. He struck out Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Jimmy Fox, and Charlie Gehringer in succession as a 17-year-old. So,
oh my gosh,
super awesome.
4 Hall of Famers.
Yep.
So the Cy Young Award in Japan is the Sawamura Award, named after him.
Right on.
He actually didn't have the most successful professional career because he was enlisted in the service, and he was a grenade thrower because he had the best arm like in the country, and he messed up his arm throwing grenades and ended up actually dying in the service.
Oh my God. Oh no.
So he's revered, like I said, the high school baseball is the culmination of baseball, and he was around before pro baseball was really a big thing, but him striking those guys out, and you can see in the picture there I don't know if you can see in the picture of him pitching, that's Ruth in the distance. So like it's set up like a pitcher versus batter.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah, it's
so
really
cool
statue there.
So
if I remember right, some of those Japanese baseball barnstorming tours, there actually is a section at Cooperstown in the Hall of Fame about these guys going over there. It's fascinating just taking a look at some of that stuff.
Yeah,
some of the relics they brought back.
There's a good amount of, it's in Cooperstown, and there's been some really cool books and written about it. And it was a big deal back then in helping Japanese professional baseball become more of a reality.
Yep. Yeah. We went to I think the Dodgers had it was like a pop-up museum, and there was some pictures in there of, Babe Ruth, but it was all, you could see like Babe Ruth was like this huge guy. The Japanese players were like little kids next to the stature was really amazing. Now, speaking of Babe Ruth, so I definitely wanted to make mention of this and see if you know more about this, because you're going to be the guy who's going to know a lot about this. So there's a lot of curses in baseball. So talking about Babe Ruth, there's the curse of the Bambino, the superstition around trading Babe Ruth from the Red Sox. This curse actually ended in 2004. They finally won a championship, but people put the curse on them. There's the curse of the Billy Goat, the Cubs, that ended in 2016. I thought this was pretty cool. Like there's, pre-curse, there was 2 world championships and 16 pennants won, 46 to 2015. 18 winning seasons, but nothing. But I love the ex-Cub factor. Since 1945, 23 teams have reached the World Series. Only 3 ex-Cub players have won the World Series. That was pretty astounding. The curse of the Black Sox. So the Black Sox scandal of the Chicago White Sox. So that ended in 2005. I didn't know about this one. It was the curse of Rocky Calavito, who was traded from the Cleveland Indians. And it's still ongoing, and they actually won't win a world championship as the Cleveland Indians. There'll be something else.
Oh yeah, that's true. And he was so beloved in Cleveland. That's true.
Yeah. And this one was a very interesting one that I didn't know about. And it's about the New York and San Francisco Giants. And it was the curse of Coogan's Bluff. And it's pretty complex. But this is actually dates back to 1918 when Eddie Grant, who you see here, was killed while fighting World War I. I was a little distressed because when I was reading, I was thinking that it was the curse of this Eddie Grant. But Electric Avenue, it's still intact. Everything is okay, everyone. Good. Now let me ask you, Shane, are you familiar with Electric Avenue?
I am.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay, so we're not completely out of touch. But I want to ask you about this. It is the curse of the Colonel.
Yeah.
Are you familiar?
I am. Yeah.
Please tell us more.
So this is a fun one. And I'm going to put something in the chat right now, this link, which I don't mean to bust your bubble, but the curse has been debunked. But it is a super fun story. Basically, so KFC was the first American fast food chain to go to Japan. And there's actually a whole interesting story in that in itself. But it was a big deal in Japan and still is a big deal in Japan. And when the Tigers won the series to go the Climax series, which is like the championship series to go to the Japan series, the finals. The Tigers fans are rowdy, right? Japanese fans are very respectful. Tigers fans maybe are the ones that don't fit the mold quite as much. And they partied so hard that they threw this statue into the river outside of the stadium. And then they struggled ever since then. And so it's the curse of the Colonel, and there's a big effort to recover the statue in order to lift the curse. It's a really fun story that has more made the rounds, I'd say, in the English-speaking Japanese baseball community, just because it's a fun story. And Trevor Raichura, who has a blog with the Hanshin Tigers, and that's the link that I sent. I think it's the right one.
Yeah, I shared it in our chat.
Yeah, and he's a big Tigers fan, and he was like, I need to settle this once and for all. And he kind of goes into why it's not, it's a story that's fun. But I know Trevor would be pissed at me if he saw that I was on this and didn't mention that. That being said, it's definitely one of the more interesting curses that you could ever have. And the Tigers fans had a fun time with it, recovering the statue, and it's on display now. And the Tigers are like the Cubs, kind of the pre-Theo Epstein Cubs. They're the lovable losers. And so when they when this kind of became symbolic of their struggles, and they still are looking for that championship since the Colonel. So actually I take that back. They have won since then. But anyway, it's a fun story. I encourage people to read the link I sent, just because I know Trevor would love for people to see the research that he put into it. But we have
to get Trevor on here one time just to talk about this.
yeah, exactly. He would be a good one.
Yeah, to put it to rest. But it's such an interesting story. And then them even jumping in the river. Now, in Japanese culture, it seems so like foreign for them to defy, everybody and do this thing. But there's definitely there's signs out there. Please do not jump in the river, after, and that they're jumping after every win now.
Yeah.
They're the Tigers fans are rowdy, and that's a bucket list ballpark for anyone, because of the history of their stadium with the high school and everything, and then things like this. The Colonel and the Tigers are just such a historic franchise, and actually Koshien and Jingu Stadium are two of the very few, Fenway Park being another one, but there's only less than, I'd say on one hand, you could count the stadiums that Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig played in that are still being used for professional baseball.
Wow.
But still, that's more than here in America now.
Yeah, exactly.
Really. It's very much just probably Fenway at this point.
Yeah.
And Alan says like the all dirt infield, and that's very unique to Japanese baseball as well.
Yeah, it's the only all dirt infield in major professional baseball, in all professional baseball that I'm aware of, except for maybe some semi-pro teams that in like Australia or somewhere maybe that use a softball field. I don't know of any other ones that have an all dirt infield. So yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. So I remember outside KFCs, there would just be like a random like Colonel Sanders statue. Michael, I just texted you a photo of me with one of the Colonel Sanders. I don't think you bring it up, but I was just like, I just cracked up when I thought about that. Oh my gosh, I forgot to send you that ahead of time, because I thought that was just such a funny thing. Like, you would never see a Colonel Sanders statue outside of KFC in America nowadays.
Yeah, they love the Colonel in Japan.
And earlier we were talking about Osaka, the wrestling group that Michael worked for called Osaka Pro. They would have baseball themed characters. Like they would have a guy called Tiger's Mask, after a famous Japanese wrestler called Tiger Mask, for the Hanshin Tigers, and they would wear like a similar kind of outfit to like matching like Hanshin Tiger colors. So because of this Colonel Sanders thing, they actually had a guy in a costume that looked like that statue, and he is called Journal Sanders. JOLNEL, to like get away with like not getting sued, and he would come out dressed like that statue that got thrown in the river. And I'm like, that tells you how a story. Yeah. Oh, there you go. There's me and Colonel Sanders. Like, yeah, I was so excited.
I love when they do that. One of my first Instagram posts, I might have to pull that one up, was next to the Tokyo Dome, but it's like this really great and really cool I guess it was a Asahi, but the little signage that was it's just like a beer. It looks so delicious, but I really love when they do those little kind of touches that those little signs that they're just they're so unique and very Japanese. I say it's definitely a super fun to have all this stuff. So. Yeah, so I mean, God, we've gone 90 minutes already. We could talk for another like 3 hours. I'm sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, but Shane, like, how can we find you? How can we find JapanBall? And let me ask you this before I ask you that. What are your future plans for JapanBall travel? Like, and especially in this, I know that Japan has. I mean, we follow New Japan Wrestling, and they've had like fans back in what was it, like half capacity or
They're almost at half now, and everyone has to wear a mask, and you're allowed to clap, but no cheering whatsoever. To the point where they actually made an app for you to press buttons to boo and cheer. And I'm like, that's fantastic. Like, that should be happening at baseball games. Like, that's so unique. I was like, that's a really cool little thing that they could do. Like, any baseball get away with that too, I would figure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously we're playing things by ear, and, I've given up on trying to guess what's going to happen. But Japan is definitely, like, at the end of the baseball season, they were letting nearly full capacity. It might have even got up to full capacity.
Oh my gosh.
Because they really needed to, they're incentivized to figure it out on how to make it work with crowds because of the Olympics. So they're really motivated to have the proper procedures in place. And they were using the end of the baseball season as kind of a training ground for their procedures. Obviously there's the big factor. Japanese people follow directions, right? Like if you tell them not to cheer, they're not going to cheer. They're going to, right? And if you tell them to wear a mask, they're going to wear a mask. So it's one thing like what's going to happen in Japan. It's another thing of what's going to happen with foreign travel. As of right now, Americans, for all intents and purposes, can't go unless they have like a really serious reason or business reason. And there's still a lot of protocols in place if you do go. That being said, we are like, I want to be ready to go there as soon as we can. And I'm thinking of maybe planning like an early, like a spring trip that's a little simpler trip that can be a reactionary one where maybe we just stay in Tokyo and hit up ballparks in the Tokyo region. So I'm going to monitor it over the next few weeks to see if it looks like there's a chance of that. But in general, we're planning on basically trying to do our tour schedule that was put off this year, assuming, vaccines come out and international travel is relatively acceptable. And what I would like to do is have, like I said, maybe this Japan trip, Tokyo trip in the spring, if it's possible. Not banking on that by any means. And then later in the summer, doing a Europe tour where we'll go to some combination of Germany, Czech Republic, Netherlands, Italy, probably 2 of those countries. And I used to go there a lot for my former job, and they have a really cool niche baseball scene and scene. So I'd love to. It was always my favorite work trip. So I basically want to take baseball fans on my favorite work trip, and do some baseball and tour in Europe. And then our annual Japan trip is always in September, our big one. And so I'm just, I'm crossing my fingers that we'll be able to do that as we normally do. And the plan would be to have a add-on, or you could do it on its own, to Seoul, South Korea, right before Japan. So if you really wanted to, you could hit up Seoul for basically a long weekend and go to a couple games in the Seoul, probably 3 games in the Seoul area over a long weekend. And then we'll hop over to Japan. And like I said, there's a pre-tour, main tour, post-tour. We also have a Tokyo-only option for people who want to just stay in Tokyo and not have to pack and unpack their stuff and travel all around on the bullet trains. If for whatever reason you want to do that. And then in November, we would do a winter ball trip to the Dominican Republic.
Oh, wow.
I worked there for 2 years for MLB, and I lived there. I studied abroad there. So in a lot of ways, it's like a second home to me. And the baseball world is so open and embracing there. And you can really put together amazing baseball pilgrimage where you're going to, starting at the ground level of like these kind of ragtag, milk crate for glove, kind of that Dominican baseball stereotype, like seeing the young prospects in training, and then going to the MLB team development academies, and seeing the professional, the kind of the bonus baby prospects, and then going to winter league games as well. So kind of an insider baseball tour of the DR next winter league season. So that's what I'm hoping to pull all of that off. I'm on the cusp of launching our new website, which is combining JapanBall.com and JapanBallTravel.com. So for all intents and purposes, I'd say anyone out there, go to JapanBall.com. It's still our old version of the site, but it has the basics up there. And I'm excited. We're going to have a shiny new site with lots of good content and everything you want to know about Japanese baseball and our tours. We're on Twitter at JapanBall. We're on Facebook at JapanBall. And we're on Instagram at JapanBall Travel. So, and on YouTube, it's just started, so I don't have the customized YouTube channel, but just search for JapanBall on YouTube and you'll find us. And we have a bunch of interviews on there that I think some people would get a kick out of. So all those places, I'd be happy to hear from anyone. My email is shane@japanball.com if anyone wants to talk about our tours or anything else. And I'm really excited to kick off our normal schedule in 2021, hopefully, and catching some ball games with people around the world.
Well, let us know in any way how we can help you spread the word, be involved. This is really super exciting. We would love to have you back because I think there's so much more to talk about. Some of your business partners, I know that we definitely need to get them on, and we need to settle this curse of the Colonel. We need to get that going. I don't think that door has been closed shut, but we're looking forward to any collaboration with you and how we can help you spread the word and definitely be involved. Let me they put this out there. We put this out there, but we actually want to hesitate people. Please, know about this. We're on Patreon now. Look up Beer Baseball on Patreon. Definitely subscribe at the first of the year. That way you can get the full month and you can support us. We also have an Etsy store. You can get some of our merchandise there. And these are the places that you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch. Thank you so much for joining us today, Shane. This has been an absolute joy. I mean, we can talk for another 2 hours. I'm sure Kevin, we're ready to go to Japan, by the way. Let's do this.
I got my passport. It's ready.
COVID be damned. Let's get some baseball. When is baseball going? But yeah, I mean, we're gonna do things the right way and make sure everybody's safe because we want to do this for decades, not just this year. So it's been a pleasure and thank you so much. And I feel like we're fast friends. I mean, this is the first time we met you, and I feel like we've known you for 20 years. So
yeah, I agree.
So thank you so much for joining us. We're not going to have another Hoppy Hour this year, but we will be back with our second to last Beer Baseball blogcast, which is Tuesday. We're actually going to be opening our Christmas presents.
The Christmas show.
The Christmas show. The Tuesday after that, we're going to actually have, it's all baseball pack wars. We're actually going to have a 9-inning game. Each inning will be a different amount. So the second inning could be worth 9. The third inning could be worth 5. It's basically going to be do or die. Who's going to win and what will be the Beer Baseball craft beer of the year? Kevin doing his Bowser over there.
I'm calling my shot. I'm going to win. I'm trying to be subtle about it. Come on.
You're calling your shot. So definitely join us on Tuesdays. Is at 6 p.m. Pacific time. We thank you so much for joining us on this Saturday. And we will see you next Tuesday.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you, everyone. Thanks, Shane.
Shane.
Thank you.